Cheryl Sleboda, and I'm a fiber artist and quilter from Plainfield, Illinois. And today I want to talk to you about Canadian smocking. You probably have seen all of these really great decorative pillows in the high-end stores that cost quite a bit of money, and they're actually very easy to make. Heirloom smocking has been around for a long time, and it's not the kind of smocking that you're thinking of with a pleater or anything like that. It's the type of smocking that you do using a series of dots or grids on the back of your fabric, and then the stitches are taken from the back so that the design appears on the front. So here's how we're going to get started. We're going to start with a half a yard of fabric, and half of that is going to be used for the front of the pillow. So you're going to start with a piece that's 18 inches square. And then you're going to need to mark the back of the fabric with your grid. Now you can do that with a ruler, and you can start by putting your ruler down and moving it over in 1-inch increments. I actually have a template that I use that has half-inch marks, and we're going to skip every other one so that we get half-inch grid lines. And I'm going to show you how that's done. I'm going to line up my template with the edge of my fabric, and that's going to give me enough for my seam allowance later. And I just take a regular pencil, and I'm going to mark in every other line. And sometimes I go back and forth to get a darker line. So there's my lines, and then I just turn the template, and it's got registration marks on it, so I'm just going to line those up, and I go in the opposite direction. And I just have to remember to skip every other line so that I get my 1-inch marks. Because this is only 6 inches square, in order for me to continue, I'm just going to line this back up with my registration marks and keep moving across all of the fabric and all the way across the front. So I already have that marked here, so I've got all of my grid lines marked out, and now I'm going to put in my pattern. Now I have this pattern memorized, but we're going to have it available on the website for you to take a look at. And so we are working on the back of the fabric, so you're not going to see these lines once you're finished. So we're just going to put the marks in, and you're just drawing from corner to corner. And I call these hash marks so that I know what I am marking. So I'm putting all my little hash marks in, and again, I'm just going to continue my pattern all the way across the fabric, and you're just going to keep marking, and I have that already done here. So using your needle and thread, and I'm just using my regular sewing thread. You would use sewing thread that's matched to the back of the fabric. I'm using sewing thread that shows up so that you can see it. And what you're going to do is just have a single length of fabric or single length of thread with a knot in the end, and you're going to pick up the edge of your fabric. Now your hand, one hand is underneath, and it's going to take just a little bite out of the corner of that fabric. So you're just going to take one little bite out of the corner. You're using the hash marks to tell you where to take that little stitch. So I'm starting here at the bottom of this box, the top of this box. And I'm actually sewing this so that in the direction that you would see it if you were holding it. So I've got a little stitch taken here, and I'm taking my stitch here, and when you pull, the two ends are going to come together of that box, and you're going to take a little stay stitch so that those two lock together permanently. There we go. Now I'm going to follow down this column here, and I'm going to find the next corner for the next box, and that's the top of this box. And I'm going to take a stitch, and I'm going to take an extra stay stitch. The reason I'm doing that is because I want to, when I pull on this, I don't want my previous stitches to pull down to this area. I just want this stitch to remain up here, and I will have a traveling thread left behind. So that's totally normal because again, you're working from the back of the fabric. So we're going to take another, we're going to follow the pattern. There's that hash mark telling me which two corners of these two boxes to sew together. And of course, my thread has come out of my needle, but you know, that happens. So we're just going to rethread that and keep going. And what you're going to do then is again to remember to take that stay stitch. So again, traveling down, follow the pattern. There's the next box. So when I do this, and I can do this in front of the television, and I can do this, you know, when I'm traveling in a car or an airplane, the nice thing is the pattern tells you where to go next. So if you have to stop sewing for any reason and pack it all up, the pattern is there, and you can just follow along the next stitch. You can pay attention to, you know, it's not something that you need to pay super close attention to. You can just watch TV and do this. So that's great. So here we are. We're kind of going to continue following all the way down this column. And once you finish the column, and you're actually going to cut the thread, and you're going to take that thread, whatever you have left over. Don't start up at the top of the next column with that. You're going to want a fresh piece of thread because you've made so many passes through the fabric. So you can start to see that my pattern started on the front of the fabric, and I actually have one all the way done. So this is what the back looks like when you're all the way finished, but here's what the front looks like. And I think it's really kind of a neat effect when you see it all finished like that. So what I've done is I've cut two pieces out of my backing fabric, and I've already made a small hem, and I'm actually just going to flip that over. And we're going to put these, right sides together. Here we go. And you can pin this, or, you know, so that you get all of the edges to the edge of your backing so that they match up. So if you do have to just, you know, put a little pin in there, and then we can show you what that looks like on the machine real quick. So again, you're just going to sew with a straight stitch all the way around because you have your envelope made. And don't forget, we're going to have all the instructions on how to make the back and all the measurements on our the website. And you're just going to pick up the presser foot and turn it. And again, if you have to massage the little piece of fabric underneath, that's totally fine. Just keep going. You're going to be sewing over all these little folds and everything, and that's what you're going to want, because when you flip it inside out or right side out, you're going to see all this extra fabric out of the way. Okay, so we're getting down to the end here, and just going to pull some of the extras out, take out my pin, put my presser foot down. See, you're not the only one. And we've got it caught there, there we go. Now at this point you would trim it, and I'm not going to do that just so I can show you what it looks like when it's flipped out. So I'm going to take my pins out so I don't get stuck with those. And when I flip it inside out, and now I'm ready to put in my pillow form. You can make sure you poke out the edges. Now the turquoise one is what it looks like when it's finished and you have your pillow form inserted. And I've also made the same type of smocking on the edge of these round pillows. So in this style, you're doing a long skinny strip, which you sew into a loop, and then you smock the center of that long skinny strip, and then you gather the edges, put in your pillow form, and then the edges, the raw edges, are covered by the button. So that's how you would do the round pillows. I'm also a quilter, and so I use a lot of smocking in my art quilts. And so you can see here is how it's inserted into patchwork. And just so you can see what the back looks like, you've got smocking and everything on the back. And that's just one of the various patterns that's available for marking the back of the fabric. So you get different patterns based on what you put on the back. So what pattern on the back determines what's on the front. You get different patterns. So I hope you give this one a try because it's a lot of fun.